Hello guys, welcome to all of you on my YouTube channel Tess Vision. I would like to say sorry to all of you because I was absent since last 3 days here. And now I am here once again with a new video on Thomas Hardy. As I was suffering from fever, I was unable to come here and record the videos. And these videos, I know that these are very important for your exam purpose because many exams like Jharkhand PGT is still going on. So here I am with Thomas Hardy today. Thomas Hardy, he is the last Victorian writer, and he is a writer who works as a bridge also between Victorian age and modern age, because the novels of Thomas Hardy were published in Victorian age, but when he showed too much pessimism in his novels and it depicted so much pathos and sorrow in his novels that the readers started taking his novels very passively, and they were very angry. They became very angry on it, and Thomas Hardy finally relinquished to write the novels. And later he started writing poems, and his first collection of poems appeared in 1819 by the name of Wessex Poems. Thomas Hardy is called a pessimist. Why? Because in his novels we always see that there is not any novel, not a single novel we can say, where he ends his novel in a happy ending. We never see. In usually all his novels we see that he has represented such characters who are suffering from the misfortunes, and these misfortunes even lead them towards their death. Not even death, but they become the cause of sorrow for others also. His novels, if you talk about Tess of the Urbervilles, Far from the Madding Crowd, Jude the Obscure, and The Return of the Native, these are the novels where Hardy has depicted so much dilemma and problems of the life of the common human beings that they seem to become a puppet in the hands of destiny. Thomas Hardy has coined a phrase, and what's the name of that phrase? It is immanent will. It is immanent, IMMANENT, immanent will. And it means that there is a supreme power behind every human being's action, and it governs us. This phrase was coined by Thomas Hardy in one of his famous poems. What is the name of the poem? Yes, it is the Convergence of the Train. The Convergence of Train, and it was written on the shipwreck of Titanic, the biggest ship of that time. Titanic was thrown into the sea, and Thomas Hardy wrote this poem as a charity purpose because he wanted to collect some money for the welfare of those people who died in this tragedy. His phrase immanent will, and it is also called Thomas Hardy's philosophy of life. His phrase immanent will means that there is a supernatural power. It is a supernatural power, or we can say the supreme power behind the human actions, and it always governs us. Means Thomas Hardy was of the view that everything is predetermined. Everything is predetermined, pre-planned, and human beings work as a puppet in the hands of this immanent will. The Titanic ship had to meet that iceberg. It was written somewhere in the destiny of both the objects, and they met, collided, and the ship ultimately was sunk, and approximately 1500 passengers died in this tragedy. Thomas Hardy was nominated, you know how many times? He was nominated approximately 27 times for the Nobel Prize, starting from 1910, or we can say 1900 to 1927. He was nominated approximately 27 times for the Nobel Prize. But you know, according to the critics, his books never could qualify the criteria of Nobel winning prize. That's why he didn't get Nobel Prize ever. Thomas Hardy is famous for his many theories, like first of all I told you immanent will, and he calls himself a Meliorist. He calls himself a Meliorist. Thomas Hardy said that my pessimism, remember this quote, my pessimism, if pessimism it be, my pessimism, if pessimism it be, does not evolve any assumption that the world is going to the dogs. My pessimism, if pessimism it be, does not evolve any assumption that the world is going to the dogs. On the contrary, my practical philosophy is distinctly Meliorist. What he said? On the contrary, my practical philosophy is distinctly Meliorist. Means he called himself that he is a Meliorist. M-E-L-I-O-R-I-S-T. Meliorist. Who are the Meliorists? Meliorists are the people who believe that world can be changed through human efforts. Means दुनिया को बदला जा सकता है अगर इंसान चाहे तो. ऐसा माना टॉमस हार्डी ने अपने आप को. टॉमस हार्डी was trained as an architect. Remember, Thomas Hardy was trained as an architect, and his literary career was started with a poet, or we can say a poem writer. Yes, he started his literary career as a poet and ended also. He started his literary career as a poet and ended his literary career also with a poem writing. And in middle of both these, writing, he, represented masterpieces in novel writing. His novels written, in this time period were the best novels of that era. But in all his novels, we see that he presented the gloom, the despair, the misfortune, sorrows, everything of human beings. And human beings, have become so much, horrified in their deeds that they, consider that their life even also has become a curse. His protagonists always, whether he is Jude, whether he is Michael Henchard, whether she is Tess, they always suffer the trauma of life because of their, misfortune. Because of their immanent will, where there is sorrow and misfortunes are written, and it is everything pre-planned in their life. Thomas Hardy, as I told you, that he was the last Victorian writer. How? Because his life, starts in Victorian period and he died in modern age. Means his famous poems, starting from Wessex poems, were appeared in modern age. He was the writer who wrote about the tragedy of Titanic ship. He was a writer who wrote about World War even. So let's come into class and see what else there is about Thomas Hardy. Thomas Hardy, as we can see that he was born in 1840 and he died in 1928. 1840 and 1928. the last and one of the greatest Victorian novelists. He was the last and greatest Victorian novelist. So remember the word Victorian novelists, because as a poet, his literary career was, even run into the modern age also. He was a regional novelist. Regional novelist, how that he wrote about a particular area that is known as Wessex. That is known as Wessex, and his region was Wessex. Region was Wessex. Thomas Hardy is known as Meliorist. Remember the word Meliorist, and he was the novelist of 19th century, yani Victorian age, and was the poet of 20th century, meaning modern age. His philosophy of life is immanent will. Remember this word immanent will means any supreme power, supreme authority which governs the fate of human being. Supreme power which governs the fate of human beings, right? That he gave in his famous poem where the convergence of the twain, and it was written on the shipwreck of Titanic. He was born at Upper Bockhampton at Stinsford in Dorset. So he was born at Upper Bockhampton at Stinsford in Dorset, England on June 2, 1840. He was born on June 2nd, 1840. The name of Hardy's father was Thomas Hardy and mother's name was Jemima. Remember her name, Jemima. In 1862, Hardy went to London and enrolled as a student at King's College, London. Remember the fact that his father's name was also Thomas Hardy, right? King's College, London. He joined Sir Arthur Bloomfield as an assistant architect for advanced architectural work. So Hardy was trained as an architect, and he used this knowledge in making his own house. His house was made by Thomas Hardy himself, and he used his architect skills in that building. His famous novels are, see here, A Pair of Blue Eyes, published in 1872, and next, Under the Greenwood Tree, 1872, once again, Far from the Madding Crowd, 1874, The Return of the Native, 1878, The Mayor of Casterbridge, 1883. and Tess of the Urbervilles, 1891, and Jude the Obscure in 1895 to 96, etc. Right, see here, famous collection of poetry. First, Wessex Poems and Other Verses, published in 1898. Poems of the Past and the Present, published in 1901. Times, Laughing Stocks and Other Verses, published in 1909. Satires of Circumstance, 1914. Moments of Vision, published in 1917. Collected Poems, 1919. Late Lyrics and Earlier with Many Other Verses, published in 1923. Human Shows, Far Fantasies, Songs and Trifles, published in 1925. Winter Words in Various Moods and Meters, published in 1928. So see here, now we are coming on the detailed study of his novels, and first novel that I have chosen for this study is A Pair of Blue Eyes. A Pair of Blue Eyes. And see here, what is the synopsis of this novel? Stephen falls in love with Ephraim. Stephen falls in love with Alfred. Her father was not happy, so they ran away together to be married. But the project is frustrated by the girl's vacillations, and Stephen, hoping for better luck when he has made a fortune, accepts a post in India. Remember where? India. By the time Henry Knight tries to woo Alfred, but Knight is a stern character, never kissed a girl in the life, and expects the same experience in his bride. Alfred's escape with Stephen has been, witnessed by a woman having a motive for revenge on Alfred. She reveals what she knows to Knight, putting the worst aspect on the matter. It has been repeated. Knight harshly breaks off the engagement and leaves Alfred still unmarried. At last, Knight learns the facts of her escape. So it is the synopsis of a pair of blue eyes. Now we have another novel, Under the Greenwood Tree, and the title of this poem has been taken from the famous Shakespeare's play. And which is this play, you have to tell me. Under the Greenwood Tree, it is the story of two young lovers. Dick Davy, first character is Dick Davy, a young member of Millstock Choir, and Fancy Day is another teacher, the schoolmistress. After overcoming the crucial difficulties in the way of true love, they happily married. The Millstock musicians are rebellious against their displacement from the church gallery in favor of a harmonium, provide some delightful racy talk. There is little bitter with the sweet. Fancy Day engaged to Dick momentarily yields to the temptation of an offer of marriage by the vicar. She comes to her senses and withdraws, but she does not tell Dick as the vicar urges. So these were the two novels which do not have much coherent plot. We can say that story of these novels is also not much interesting. But from here, since beginning with the Far from the Madding Crowd, this novel was, we can say, the Hardy's first novel that made him a popular writer. Far from the Madding Crowd. And Far from the Madding Crowd, the title also has been taken from one of famous Thomas Gray's poem. Yes, this poem is Far from the Elegy Written in Country Churchyard. Elegy Written in Country Churchyard is the name of the poem, from where the title of this novel has been taken. So here, from the Madding Crowd, we see that there is a girl whose name is Bathsheba. And we can say that she is a very proud girl. There is a very, meek and very humble person whose name is Oak. And he always tries to pursue that girl. But she never, yields to her advances. So see here, what is the story of the novel? The theme of this novel is the contrast of a patient and generous devotion with a selfish and unscrupulous love with a violent passion, right? Oak, the shepherd, serves the capricious Bathsheba Everden for many years with an humble, unselfish devotion. Sergeant Troy, the gallant, fascinating soldier who deserts Fanny Robin and lets her die in childbed in a workhouse, wins Bathsheba for his wife and then ill-treats her. Troy is murdered by Boldwood for Bathsheba. Boldwood become, lunatic. Gabriel and Bathsheba are at last united, but they united in such circumstance when, Bathsheba had no any option left. And Oak waited so much time for the approval of Bathsheba's assent that, he also was tired. And one day he said that, no, I can't tolerate now and I want to leave. And at that time, Bathsheba realized that there's nobody to help her in the farming and other works also. That's why she married him. So now we have another novel, The Return of the Native. The novel is set on the Edgin Heath, where Edgin Heath, a fictional barren moor in Wessex, in southwestern England. The native of the title is Clym. Remember the word Clym, who has returned from France, who has returned to the area to become a schoolmaster after successful, but in his opinion, shallow career as a jeweler in Paris. He was in France and worked as a diamond merchant there. And when he returned his village, he saw that the people of that village are very rustic. There's a girl, and the girl is also not faithful. And one day when he was there with her in the church, one of the men in the village called that girl a witch, W-I-T-C-H. And Clym at this moment realized that the people of this village must be, educated. And he decided to become a schoolmaster. And that girl, she did not, Thomasin, is the name of the girl. Thomasin did not want him to be here as a school teacher. She loved Clym because Clym was a diamond merchant, not because he was a good man. But finally, when Clym started living here, he put himself in so much studies that he became blind due to it. And when he became blind, Thomasin started having affair with anybody else. So see here, he and his cousin Thomasin exemplify the traditional way of life, while Thomasin's husband Damon Wildeeb and Clym's wife Eustacea long for the excitement of city life. It was Eustacea who pretended to be in love with Clym because she wanted to live in city. She wanted to leave that place and wanted to settle herself in Paris, in France. But when Clym became here a school teacher, she started, having affair with anybody else. Disappointed that Clym is content to remain on the heath, Eustacea, willful and passionate, rekindles her affair with the reckless Damon. Yes, the name of Damon Wildeeb. He was the person with whom Eustacea started having affair. After a series of coincidences, Eustacea comes to believe that she is responsible for the death of Clym's mother. So how Clym's mother died? One day, Eustacea started living with Clym at another place, and when one day Clym's mother visited there, she did not open the door. And why? Because she was there with Damon Wildeeb, and Clym was blind, he could not see anything. And when Eustacea did not open the door, she returned, Clym's mother returned from there very, she became very disappointed on it, that her daughter-in-law is not even opening the door. And while she was returning, a snake bit her and she died. Convinced that fate has doomed her to cause others pain, Eustacea flees and is drowned by accident or intent. Damon drones trying to save her. So Damon Wildeeb and Eustacea both died in this novel, and Clym has become a had become completely blind. So he tries to become, a priest, and the novel ends in a tragic note. The Mayor of Casterbridge, yes, the famous novel, The Mayor of Casterbridge. Michael Henchard is the protagonist of the novel. Michael Henchard sells his wife Suzanne and his daughter to Newson. Newson is a sailor, or we can say sailor. He is a sailor, Sailor, Navik, for 5 guineas. He was in a hangover. He was in booze. Okay, right? And he sold his wife and daughter in 5 guineas. And when he comes in his conscience, he takes an oath that he's not going to consume liquor, till 20 years. And takes a solemn vow not to touch intoxicants for 20 years. Remember how much year? 20 years. He becomes rich and the mayor of Casterbridge. Mayor of Casterbridge. After 18 years, his wife returns. He learns that the girl was Newson's daughter and his daughter died. His capable assistant Donald Farfrae also leaves him and becomes his rival in business. Donald marries Lucetta, whom Henchard loves. Now he was alone. Suzanne also dies. The story of the sale of his wife is revealed. He loves mayorship and is ruined in business and begins, to take drink again, because the solemn vow of 20 years now had been completed. It was 20 years have been passed, and now he started taking liquor again. Newson comes and claims for his daughter. Lucetta also dies into a fit of hysteria. Now Farfrae and Elizabeth marries with Newson's consent. Who is Elizabeth? Elizabeth, the daughter of Newson. Henchard comes to attend marriage, but is sadly treated by Elizabeth. With broken heart, he returns and dies after some time. So this novel also ended on a tragic note. Michael Henchard, who sold his wife in 5 guineas to Newson, ultimately, killed himself also, because he was ill-treated by the daughter whom he nourished. So see here, now we have another novel, Tess of the Urbervilles, and it was published in 1891. Tess of the Urbervilles. Tess of the Urbervilles, a pure woman faithfully presented. After her impoverished family learns of its noble lineage, knave Tess de D'Urberville is sent by her slothful father and ignorant mother to make an appeal to a nearby wealthy family who bear the ancestral name de Urbervilles. So see here, the entire game in this novel is of this title, de Urbervilles. One day, Tess's father was traveling somewhere and he met the chaplain of the village, and who told him that you belong to the famous family of de Urbervilles. And Tess's father became very happy on it, that yes, that I am not so much poor, I belong to a very wealthy family, so I will, I will have to inherit the property of that person. And due to this, he started, tempting the girl Tess to go there. And one day, when Tess, in the absence of his father, when she was carrying the bees, she was supplying bees to city, and when she was returning from there, her horse, Prince, dies in an accident. And when her horse died, her father, now had once more started tempting her to go into the house of de Urbervilles. She goes there, but finds out that they also are not the real de Urbervilles. They are just using the titles of de Urbervilles. And Tess starts working here as a maid of Alec's mother, Alec de Urbervilles, who is the villain of this novel. And one day, Alec rapes Tess. Tess was, very innocent girl. Thomas Hardy, through this novel, established why he has given the title a pure woman. Because according to Thomas Hardy, the chastity of a woman lies in her innocence, not in her virginity. Lies in her chastity, in her innocence, not in her chastity. And through this novel, he raised a question mark on the stereotype of that Victorian society. And this novel was initially banned even, because people took this very harshly, that how can you say that? The chastity of a woman lies in virginity, not in innocence. They were not ready to accept that. And Tess was raped by the Urbervilles. And when she returns from that place, she starts crying by catching her mother's arms, and says that, Mom, tell me that this world is so cruel. You did not ever tell me that the people of this world are very cruel. I did not know, And at that time, she had no any option left, and she gives birth a premature child. And when she goes for, because the child died very soon. The child died, when he was very infant and died. And when Tess goes in church to bury that child, the priest, declines of the burial of that child. He says that he has not been baptized. So how can you bury him here? And Tess baptizes that child herself and gives him the name Sorrow. Right? And she starts working in a dairy farm after it. And this was a time when she fell in love with the dairy owner Angel Clare. So see here, Tess, attractive and innocent, is seduced by dissolute Alec d'Urberville and secretly bears a child, Sorrow, who dies in infancy. Later, working as a dairymaid, she meets and marries Angel Clare. She was in love with Angel Clare, and she wanted to tell everything to Angel, but this is the Hardy's immanent will, that fate and destiny. She writes everything in a letter and goes to Angel's place, and finding Angel not there, she puts that letter under the door. And the letter was it came under a carpet. And when they married, and in the night of that marriage there comes to confession, then Tess told everything. Then Angel became very angry on it and said that you did not ever tell me about this, that you have been raped by a person and you have given the birth of a child also. Tess tells that I have told you everything through a letter, but Angel says that I never got that letter because the letter was under the carpet. And Angel leaves that place and even plans to go abroad. But the other girls of that dairy tell Angel that, Tess loved you a lot. And her love was very pure. You could not understand the love of Tess. And finally, Angel returns. But the tragedy was awaited. An idealist gentleman who rejects Tess after learning of her past on their wedding night. Emotionally bereft and financially impoverished, Tess is trapped by necessity into giving in once again to the Urbervilles. The Urbervilles Alec has returned now and he has become a priest. But after seeing Tess once again, his emotions are awakened, his infatuation is awakened, and he, offers Tess that if you become my mistress, I will give you financial support. And Tess, having no option left, became, once again with Alec d'Urbervilles. But when Angel returns, she, kills elect Urbervilles and stabs him. And ultimately, she was hanged. But she murders him when angel returns. The final line of this novel is justice was done. Justice was done. And the president of immortals, justice was done, and the president of immortals in bracket with Aeschylean phrase had ended its race with Tess. Robert Browning, in one of his famous poems, Pippa Passes, has written that God is in his heaven. Remember? Okay, God is in his heaven. All is right with the world. But here in this novel, Thomas Hardy has written that God is not in his heaven. God is not in his heaven. All is wrong with the world. In contrast to Robert Browning, he has written that God is not in his world. All is wrong with the world. So it was Hardy's line that has been written in the Tess of the Urbervilles. So finally we have Jude the Obscure, the final, or we can say the last novel of Hardy, Jude Folly. Jude Folly, entangled in a love affair with Arabella Dawn. Arabella Dawn, a mere female animal. Yes, she is like an animal, mere female animal. By deserted, he aimed to become a priest, but falls in love with his cousin Sue Bridehead. She is a very innocent girl. A teacher, Jude eloped with Sue Bridehead but did not marry. Later, Sue returns to Philistone and Jude dies miserably. Jude dies miserably. Little father is the son of who's Jude and Sue Bridehead. Little father kills Sue's two children and commits suicide due to avoid hunger and leaves a note, done because we are too many. Done because we are too many. Tess and then Jude caused moral furor among the Victorians that Hardy decided not to write novels. So Jude of the Obscure, it was so pessimist novel in itself that people started hating Hardy, that you must not present so much sadness and sorrows in your novels. Now we have Hardy's famous poems. Which are they? The Darkling Thrust. First of all, the Darkling Thrust. The Darkling Thrust is a great winter poem written by Thomas Hardy, right? Poised on the beginnings of a new year, that it was written on the 31st December 1899. 31st December 1899, Hardy reflects in this poem the events of the 19th century along with his own feelings about the future and his attitude to nature, right? The poem opens with the end of the year, the end of the day, even the end of the century, right? So it was the Darkling Thrust. We can say that somewhere in Hardy's poem there is a positivity also, that if you ever get the opportunity to read the poems of Thomas Hardy, and you will notice that in Darkling Thrust also he has written that there is a hope somewhere fraught in this world, but I am unknown to that hope. So there is some hope in Thomas Hardy's poem, but in some poems, not always. Now we have next poem, The Voice. This is one of the most celebrated of Hardy's poems of 1912 to 13, which Hardy wrote following the death of his first estranged wife, Emma. Emma's death caused Hardy to revisit their life together, especially the early years of their marriage in the 1870s. And now we have another poem, The Ruined Maid. The Ruined Maid. This poem can be read a number of ways. Is an ironic look at the status of the fallen woman in Victorian, society is the woman who has been seduced by a man she's not married to. She's not married to, or is it calling for a change in Victorian moral values? It takes the forms of a dialogue between the ruined maid of the title and her friend whom she meets in a town. The ruined maid then tells her friend about how great her life is since she allowed herself to be ruined. Means her life is great because she has been seduced, she had been raped. So now whatever charm and beauty she is, yani ki her friend is seeing is everything because of her, she had put at stake her own chastity. Now we have another poem, The Oxen, written in 1915 during World War I. This poem shows a yearning for childhood beliefs which the adult speaker can no longer hold. In other words, it highlights the yearn to believe, even or perhaps especially when we know that we cannot bring ourselves to entertain such beliefs. Means when we can become older, then we remember some acts, some parts of our life which enlivens everything. We remember that in our childhood we used to do so, and this is the scene here. Hardy had lost his religious faith early in life. A fine analysis of the poem can be found here. We included The Oxen in our pick of the best Christmas poems, right? The Convergence of the Twin. Convergence of the Twin is the last poem, perhaps. The Convergence of the Twin, subtitled Lines on the Loss of the Titanic. Lines on the Loss of the Titanic was written by English poet Thomas Hardy for the Titanic Disaster Disaster Fund. The Titanic, a luxurious ship believed to be unsinkable, infamously collided with an iceberg and sank on April 15th, 1912, killing over 1,500 people. Hardy's poem is a chilling meditation on human vanity and powerlessness before the indifferent, destructive powers of nature, and that is immanent will. That is immanent will, right? Here is a small, fraction of Victorian age that I have kept here, and it is Newgate novel series. I did not want to make another video on this topic because the topic was very short. That's why I put this concept here in this video, and it is Newgate novel series. Newgate novel series is also known as Old Bailey novels. Old Bailey novels, and they were published from 1820s to 1840s. Means Newgate novel series just turned 20 years. And what was the purpose of these novels? What was the purpose of this series of the novels? They were to glamorize the lives of the criminals. Means Newgate novel series were to glamorize the lives of the criminals, and most drew their inspiration from the Newgate calendar. Means Newgate was a prison where the keeper of that prisoner had a record of those murderers, those criminals who had been executed in that month, or we can say week or fortnight, whatever. So originally a monthly bulletin. It was a monthly bulletin of executions produced by the keeper of Newgate prison. Keeper of Newgate prison. Dickens's Oliver Twist is an example of it. Dickens's Oliver Twist is an example of Newgate novel series. So Newgate novel series started publishing in 1820 and run till 1840. So they were to glamorize the lives of the criminals, and they were inspired from the monthly calendar of that Newgate prison. So right here, so Dickens Dickens's Oliver Twist is an example of Newgate novel series. So it was all about for Victorian age and finally Thomas Hardy. Right? So from today, the Victorian age ends here, and in our next lecture, we are going to discuss the modern age. Before coming on the historical or political background of modern age, I will tell you something about psychological facts. I will tell you Oedipus complex, Electra complex, theory of subconscious, unconscious, conscious, and other theories related to psychology, because without psychology you will be unable to interpret the happenings and texts of modern age. So it was all for today about Victorian age. I am not quite well at this time, so it is an arduous task for me to speak for a long time. So see you all tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good day. If you like this video, please like and comment in the comment box. Thank you so much.